Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got something huge to talk about. Ukrainian drones have just pulled off one of the most daring strikes of the war, targeting none other than Russia's nuclear base. This attack has sent shockwaves through Moscow and beyond, with experts calling it one of the most strategic operations of the entire conflict. But what exactly happened after Ukrainian drones hit this high-value target? And what are the consequences of this bold move? Well, let's break it down. It all started when Ukrainian forces launched a series of precision drone strikes aimed directly at Russia's nuclear weapons facility. This was no ordinary base. It housed some of Russia's most advanced missile defense systems, nuclear warheads, and strategic assets. These kinds of facilities are heavily guarded, not just by military forces, but by layers of advanced technology and security. But none of that was enough to stop the Ukrainian drones. The attack was planned meticulously. Ukrainian intelligence had tracked the base for weeks, gathering intel on the security patterns and weaknesses in the facility's defenses. The drones themselves were equipped with cutting-edge technology, making it almost impossible for Russia to intercept them in time. The strike was swift. Multiple drones hit their targets with precision, causing significant damage to the base and its equipment. The immediate explosion was massive, lighting up the night sky and sending debris flying. Russian officials were quick to respond, scrambling to contain the damage and assess the situation. But what they didn't expect was the global outcry that followed. The attack on a nuclear base wasn't just an act of military aggression. It raised serious questions about the escalation of the conflict. Could this be a tipping point for a larger confrontation between NATO and Russia? Or was it a calculated risk by Ukraine to strike a symbolic blow against one of Russia's most sensitive assets? The Kremlin, of course, denied any serious damage, claiming that the strike was ineffective and that their defenses had successfully repelled the drones. But satellite images and local reports tell a different story. Russian military experts have acknowledged that the strike did, in fact, cause significant damage, though they continue to downplay the extent of the losses. What followed the attack was a series of retaliatory strikes from Russia, but these seemed more like a show of strength than a targeted effort to regain control over the situation. Russia launched missiles at Ukrainian cities, aiming to disrupt critical infrastructure. However, the speed and precision of Ukraine's strike on the nuclear base served as a reminder that the tide of this war may be turning in unpredictable ways. The international community has been on edge since the strike, with many countries calling for de-escalation. Nuclear weapons, after all, are the most sensitive and dangerous assets in modern warfare, and any attack on them is bound to provoke fear of a larger, more catastrophic conflict. However, Ukraine's attack on the nuclear base has also been seen as a show of strength, a statement that they are capable of taking on Russia's most guarded positions, regardless of the risks. Behind the scenes, there has been growing speculation about whether Ukraine received help from outside actors, possibly NATO allies or other military organizations who provided the technological support necessary for this attack. Some sources suggest that the drones used in the operation were far more advanced than anything Ukraine had previously fielded, leading to further questions about the true scope of international involvement. But what does this mean for the future of the war? Could this attack be the catalyst for a more aggressive response from Russia, or will it prompt them to reconsider their next moves? And more importantly, how will NATO and the rest of the world react to this escalation? As the situation unfolds, all eyes are on Moscow and Kyiv to see how the next chapter in this high-stakes conflict will play out. In the days following the attack, Russia's response was a mixture of fury and denial. The Kremlin spokesperson called the attack an act of terror and vowed retaliation, but the true depth of the damage remained unclear. Despite Russia's official statements claiming minimal losses, independent sources suggested that critical infrastructure at the nuclear base had been significantly compromised. Some analysts believe that the attack may have rendered parts of Russia's nuclear arsenal temporarily inoperable, which could have a huge impact on their military capabilities in the near future. The scale of this operation raised eyebrows across the globe. Ukrainian forces, once considered underdogs in this war, had now successfully targeted one of Russia's most secure and sensitive facilities. The strike was a display of not only military precision, but also intelligence and planning, and it sent a powerful message to Moscow. Ukraine would no longer shy away from hitting where it hurts the most, but the real shocker came when some reports suggested that the drones used in the attack were not entirely homegrown. There were whispers that NATO's involvement went beyond just providing moral support. While neither the US nor any NATO country has openly claimed responsibility, the technology used in the drones appeared to surpass what Ukraine's domestic manufacturing capabilities could produce. This has fueled speculation that the West may be stepping up its indirect support, providing Ukraine with weapons and technology that could tilt the balance of the war. On the ground in Ukraine, the mood was mixed. There were celebrations in the streets of Kyiv, with citizens applauding the bold strike. Many saw it as a turning point, proof that Ukraine could stand up to one of the world's most powerful military forces. Yet there were also moments of tension as rumors circulated about potential Russian reprisals. Citizens were wary of the impact this attack could have on their lives, especially if Russia decided to escalate with more airstrikes or even ground invasions. The Ukrainian military was quick to issue a statement defending the attack as a legitimate military action aimed at weakening Russia's ability to launch further assaults on Ukraine. The Ukrainian leadership emphasized that this was not just a retaliation for previous attacks, but part of a broader strategy to weaken Russia's military infrastructure over time. In that sense, it was seen as a calculated and strategic move, designed to inflict long-term damage on Russia's ability to wage war. Internationally, the reaction was divided. Western countries, particularly the US and EU members, largely supported Ukraine's right to defend itself. The United States, however, remained cautious in its public statements, urging Ukraine to avoid further escalation and refrain from targeting nuclear facilities directly. Russia, on the other hand, condemned the strike as an escalation of hostilities and warned that such actions could lead to uncontrollable consequences. The nuclear-based strike set off a ripple effect in global markets, especially oil and gas prices. Russia's control over energy supplies to Europe is a powerful weapon, and many feared that the attack would trigger a severe energy crisis. European nations, who are already heavily dependent on Russian energy exports, began scrambling for alternatives, which further fueled the volatility in the energy markets. The attack had far-reaching economic consequences, shaking not only military and political alliances, but also global supply chains. At the same time, rumors of Ukrainian intelligence operations inside Russia began to surface. Unconfirmed reports indicated that Ukrainian operatives had been gathering intelligence on Russian military assets for months, carefully monitoring their movements and vulnerabilities. There was talk of a covert network operating inside Russia itself, feeding information back to Kyiv about the locations of key targets. This raised the question of how deep Ukraine's intelligence operations had penetrated into Russia. Were there other high-value targets waiting to be hit? As the weeks passed, Ukraine continued to make gains in the war, emboldened by the success of the nuclear-based strike. However, Russia's response became increasingly aggressive. Airstrikes on Ukrainian cities ramped up, and there were reports of Russian forces moving closer to key Ukrainian border regions. The tension between the two nations reached new heights, and it seemed that this war was far from over. The global community began bracing itself for what could be an even bigger escalation. Diplomats and military experts across the world warned that Russia's next move could involve not just more strikes against Ukraine, but also an increase in the use of nuclear rhetoric. With both sides now holding such dangerous assets, the war was no longer just a conventional conflict. It was rapidly becoming a high-stakes game of global security.